for our listeners that are out there watching, that are probably new to all this stuff, what are and might want to clear their house full of any trinkets and stuff like that. What should they look out for?
Look out for things that they like memorabilia. Things like memorabilia when they get things from other countries, when they go on vacation. Um, Also things like wooden figures like that have faces on them and stuff like that. And like you have those African wooden figures. Like my grandmother used to have a lot of those. So that right there, I can tell you, I'm glad I remembered that because a lot of the witchcraft came from my grandmother's house, and she wasn't a witch, you see. But she had a husband who was African. He was African from Ghana, not my grandfather, but this was her husband that she married after my grandfather, and he basically was from Ghana. But I believe he might have been dabbling into that kind of stuff. But he had a lot of money. He had a lot of wealth. So he took care of her. So she was on board with that because of the finances and stuff. And due to that financial situation that she was in, she was able to do a lot for us. I have two siblings, my sister and my brother, and my grandmother was basically our financial caretaker, and so I spent a lot of time with my grandmother and I spent a lot of time at her house. But a lot of the spirits that got attached to me, a lot of the curses came to me at around the age of 7, 8, 9. A lot of the real curses came on me at that time. But that was around the time that I started spending a lot of time with my grandmother and at her home. And she was married to this man, and at that, but nobody ever talked about witchcraft. So, of course, me being a little girl, I wouldn't know about anything witchcraft. We would celebrate Halloween like it was the next party, waiting for the next year to come, and so we didn't know anything about that, dress up in witch costumes and all that, not knowing the spiritual repercussions of any of it. My mom has never once mentioned witchcraft. My grandmother never once mentioned witchcraft. And even like again, when I would bring it to them later on in life, they would look at me like I had four heads. And when I started really learning the Bible and trying to tell them, they would act like, well, that's not you're bugging, that's not God, or that's not whatever, they just didn't care about what I was saying.
What really stood out to me about what you said about your grandma, that the guy she married was a good provider, is that they might not be fully into that, but they do spells for money, and
Yes.
of course, if they're
Yeah.
doing little spells or little rituals and